All right, everyone, I think we're live, but I never quite know until I go over to my page and check and see what's happening. So I'm going to do that. And you can tell us if we're live. I'm sitting here with the Apostate Prophet. Now, I should start off with a quick question here. You call yourself the Apostate Prophet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So you call yourself the Apostate Prophet, and yet we know from Surah 33, verse 40 of the Quran, that Muhammad was the final prophet. And so I'm having some difficulty here understanding the logic of your name. If Muhammad's the last prophet, and here you are 14 centuries later, how can you be the Apostate Prophet?
Well, let me tell it this way. You call him the false prophet. I call him the pervert prophet, as I have done so before on my channel. I don't recognize him as a prophet. I am the rightful prophet. No. I call myself the Apostate Prophet because obviously I'm an apostate from Islam. I left the Islamic religion because it was logically impossible to believe in it for me. And then afterwards, especially because there were also morally very wrong things about Islam, I went out to talk about Islam. At first, I used the Prophet as some form of parody. I just said the Prophet. That was on Instagram about more than a year ago. But at some point, many angry people from the religion of peace invaded my Instagram account and continuously sent me death threats and insults and stuff like that. I even made a huge collection of those. And but at some point I thought I have to rename all of this because I'm tagged everywhere. So I thought Apostate Prophet sounds very nice.
Well,
and then later it
hang
became
on,
more
hang
and
on.
more sophisticated.
I'm having a hard time believing that people would threaten you simply for criticizing a religion that means peace. So maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. But along these same lines, I've noticed that you have a picture as your avatar. Now, who is this supposed to be? Is this a generic prophet, or is this Muhammad, or is this a you, or who? Hold up. Who is this right here? All right, I got up on the screen.
I can tell you that right away. What I did is, wait, is it there already?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What I did was I downloaded some software that I wanted to use to draw some awkward things. So I sat down there and just drew some very weird looking picture in 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes, and then I thought this looks actually very good. It wasn't supposed to be anyone. It was just some weird guy with some beard.
Okay.
I thought this looks very good, so I posted that. I don't know why people think that is Muhammad. I have no idea.
All right, so I'll remove that, but I will stick it down in the little corner just so people know how to recognize you when they see that avatar pop up somewhere. Now,
I completely approve of that.
but this does lead to a follow-up question. You know that according to Islam, images are forbidden, and that God doesn't like them. Angels won't go in a house that has an image, and if people see an image, they might just start worshiping it. So how does this not concern you that you're calling yourself the Apostate Prophet and you're putting an image out there that people might immediately start worshiping and bowing down to?
That's perfectly fine for me. That's perfect. I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, if they want to do that, they can do that. I have no problem with that at all. I want to declare that here once and forever. I have no problem with that at all.
One more question here, and oh wait, let me respond to a couple people over here in the chat. People are posting where they're from, and people are asking how long this is going to be. Guys, this is I'm planning on doing this for about an hour, interviewing the Apostate Prophet here, and then depending on how many people are watching, we might answer some questions from the chat here. So, you know, if you guys are chatting with each other, raising points, that's fine. I probably won't pay attention to them for about an hour, and if we decide to continue for a little while, that would be a time to post some questions. But back to the Apostate Prophet here. One more question along these lines. You're saying that you are a former Muslim, and yet I detect a German accent. So we know that you criticize. We know that you criticize Islam, and we know that you have a German accent. How would we know that you are not a Nazi?
I didn't expect that. Okay.
Oh, wait. For some reason, your screen is frozen, but I hear your voice fine. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it'll go back to normal. But I guess it's fine as long we hear you fine.
Okay. Let me check that very quickly. I have some technical issues here.
Oh, yep, you're moving now. You hear me?
Am I there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
All right,
Amazing.
So German accent.
Nazi.
German accent criticizing Islam. What conclusion are we supposed to draw here?
Well, the conclusion is I'm not a Nazi. I mean, you can see it in my face.
Wait, you're not the master race here?
I am absolutely not. I wish I was. But sadly, life is unfair, and I'm not. I was born in Germany into a Turkish family, into a very religious Turkish family, into a Sunni Sufi Muslim family. And I grew up in Germany until I was 16 years old. I lived there. That's why I have a German accent that I still can't get rid of, and that I will probably never be able to get rid of. But yeah, so many people ask me for proof to prove that I'm an ex-Muslim. Of course, I won't do that.
Well, first might want proof that I mean, we have to test your credibility in every way. We'll have to test whether you're German. Do you speak fluent German?
I do.
Okay, so tell me what I'm saying now. Ich habe einen grünen Pass.
I have a green card or green ID. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the beginning of a song called was that Fremden eigenem Land by a German hip hop group called Advanced Chemistry back in the day.
Okay. I don't know if that one.
Okay. All right. So, grew up in Germany. So, share for us a bit what it's like growing up, as far as your family background and your background through your time in Germany.
This is the point where we are stopping joking, right?
No, I assure you, I will joke throughout. I can't help myself. So joking will pop up again, but
okay,
yeah,
I'm fine with that.
We're getting more serious now, so I'll give a serious look.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Okay. I was born, as said, in Germany into a religious Muslim family, into a Sunni Sufi family. That's, of course, different from growing up into a fundamentalist Salafi Muslim family, for example, or growing up in Pakistan, for example. There's obviously a difference. But growing up in a religious Muslim family, it's very different. I mean, especially if you grow up in Germany, you see that you yourself, your own upbringing, your family is very much different from how people around you grew up and how people around you live. Of course, you are always told to respect all the things that Muslims tell you always to respect. You are told at a very early age to start observing the prayer, to start going with your parents to make specific Islamic practices, to fulfill them. For girls, it starts at a very early age to put on the hijab. That was not the case in my case, of course, but. Yeah, but that's about what that's about what it looks like. Of course, there's also these things like when you grow up in Germany, in the West, in a non-Muslim country, you can't eat a lot of things that other people eat. That's not only about pork; it's also about very many different things, like food that contains gelatin, any other type of meat that has not been slaughtered in the name of Allah, for example, is forbidden for you to eat if you are in a religious family that actually observes those rules. You can't go out with the other gender, for example. So it's quite depressive. It's very sad actually to grow up in that. And something is bothering me here. But yeah. That's about what it looks like. It's quite depressing, quite sad. That's how I can summarize that.
Okay, so that's sort of the Islamic impact. But if you were a Muslim, if you were a Muslim from a Muslim family to some extent in Germany, how were you treated by non-Muslims? Did they? Oh,
that was the question. Well, No, actually not. I mean, I want to make that very clear. I want to make that very clear because that's something that's really bothering me. It's good that you brought that up. I see very many Muslims in the West, in America, in Germany, in Sweden, in France, and wherever, say things like that they are treated with racism and that they are treated unfairly and that many people have suspicions about them and prejudice against them and so on. I grew up in Germany too, and I didn't even grow up in a very specifically tolerant region or anything like that. It was just a rural region in Germany in the south. You know, in the south is more religious is more conservative than the north in Germany. And I didn't experience racism or anything like that in any form. I can even go as far as to tell you that I had friends who were very much on the far right when I was growing up, and among them were also adults, and I was a teenager. And even among them, I didn't experience racism, let alone among the general population. I didn't experience racism in any way at all. I experienced much more racism among my own kind in Germany.
Now,
I know
what do you mean according to among your own kind? Like because you're a different kind of Muslim or
No.
Towards the non-Muslims or what?
Yeah, I'm generalizing the Muslim population here, or Turks or Muslims, for example. Many people are a bit angry when you say it this way, but that's just the truth. That's what I have seen. That's what many other people have seen. By my own kind, I'm referring to Turks and Muslims, for example. And I mean, I have seen among them continuously this hate against non-Muslims. I had teachers at school who were very kind to me, kinder than any teacher that I have met in Turkey, for example, because we moved to Turkey after a while when I was 16. And but in the back of my mind, while we were having German teachers and German friends, we were always told in Muslim families that no matter how friendly they are to us, no matter how nice they are to us, we should always think about the fact that they are Christians, and that they eat pork, and that they are basically what they eat. But that's nothing new, nothing surprising, nothing controversial among the Muslim population in such countries. That's something that's regularly said among Muslims.
Hold on, because we hear that non-Muslims are overly critical of Muslims and have this negative view of Muslims simply because their beliefs and their eating practices. But you're saying that many people in the Muslim community were doing the exact reverse, that they had a negative view of non-Muslims based on things like, what they believe and what they eat?
I wouldn't say the exact reverse. I would say they are actually doing it, and they are doing it in a much worse way than they are actually describing other people to do that. You can see among many Muslim sources, even online, if you go on such a search on why pork is forbidden, on why pork is bad, for example, that they say people who eat pork also act like the thing that they eat.
I've seen Zakir Naik say that. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, exactly. I have seen that too. And I have heard that when I was 6 years old. I have heard that when I was 7 and 8 and 9, growing up in Germany among people who regularly eat pork, for example. I was constantly beaten into my mind by my own kind that those people who eat pork are like pigs. Because when they eat that, they are also acting like that. And that was also the excuse why they have very weird behavior among themselves. Like, I don't know, all the things that you can now mention that I mean, the way they describe non-Muslims. What I want to say at this point is also, I said Christians specifically, although I grew up in Germany, and in Germany there is a huge population of non-religious people. In the Muslim community, that's not even something that's respected. I mean, many non-religious people in the West are telling us nowadays that we have to be tolerant towards the Muslim population, towards Islam, and so on. But when I grew up in that Muslim community, in my Muslim community and also in other Muslim communities, the existence of non-religious people and atheists, for example, is not even respected. The general Muslim population doesn't even have respect for the existence of atheists and agnostics and irreligious people. They usually describe those people as Christians and crusaders in very defaming ways. Yeah.
All right. Well, you eventually became a very bad Muslim by leaving Islam. But why don't you give us
Yeah.
a little background about sort of, people go through kind of this sort of situation in their lives. How basically how devout were you at various stages and starting here kind of in Germany?
Well, I would say like this. I grew up into a religious Muslim family, but in my childhood, in my teenage years, I wasn't very receptive to my parents teaching me about the religion and trying to make me pray and things like that. I was always rebellious against it. I always had kind of an independent mind. So I was never really into that. But we moved to Turkey when I was 16 years old. I went through major depression when I was in Turkey. I found myself identifying with things like communism. I was very, for quite a long time in my late.
How big is that in Turkey, by the way? Is that like a significant, like, is that a live option for lots of Turks, or is that,
Regionally.
if someone told me here they were a communist, I would think it's really weird. Is that somewhat normal there?
Well, I think it's more common among the general population, but people don't view that in a good way. I mean, people speak very, very bad about communists,
Yeah.
and in very generalized. Yeah, yeah. So for some time I was a communist, and I really went very far because I had major issues, major depressions with going back to Turkey and so on, and I found myself openly supporting, even at school, this illegal city. How is it called? Illegal guerrilla organizations, illegal terrorist communist organization, revolutionary organization, but I thought more and more about communism and about how much it really makes sense, and I came to the conclusion that it doesn't make sense at all, and it's a big human failure to rely on philosophies like Marxism. So I was at some point in 2010, at the very beginning of 2010, I suddenly found myself, when my aunt died, whom I liked very much, who was like a friend to me, I found myself suddenly thinking more about death and about the meaning of life. And I turned more and more towards becoming religious, towards reading the Quran and other scripture. And suddenly, in the middle of 2010, I became extremely religious and devoted myself very, very much to being religious. I stopped listening to music because that's forbidden. I stopped doing all the bad things. I stopped even things that are not so bad, but that I shouldn't be doing anyway. And I started praying all the time, not only 5 times a day, but also at night and in the morning, reading the Quran. I read the Quran 3 times during my religious times. I read Sahih Bukhari very much during that time, and also many other texts especially from Sufi scholars, like Imam Ghazali, for example. And I even used to go out and tell people about how beautiful this is and how they should do this too, how they should join my religiousness and try Sufi practices and stuff like that. So I was really dead serious about that. But it lasted about 4 years. And at the end of 2013, at the beginnings of 2014, I had more and more questions, and I questioned things more and more. I came to question all the things that were in my mind that I pushed away because I didn't want to question those things, because I was afraid of losing my religiosity, because we were always told at age 5 that this is the absolute truth and questioning it is forbidden. And if we start questioning it, then Satan will play with us and will lead us astray. And Muhammad said explicitly that you shouldn't question it and should rather pray to Allah when questions come into your mind, because those questions are put into your mind by Satan himself and stuff like that. But I just couldn't deal with it. I had so many questions in my mind, and all those questions led me to leave this religion. Especially towards the end, I came to this to something that we Muslims are told all the time, that the Gospel and the Torah, that the Bible is corrupted. it, and that we should abstain from it, that we shouldn't even read it and give it any attention, because the Jews and the Christians corrupted it because they wanted to go astray and they didn't want to obey Allah. But at the end of my time, after reading the Quran for so long and studying Islam for so long, I started actually opening the Bible and reading the Gospel, reading the Torah, and then I noticed that it doesn't make sense. I looked at all those Quran references on how the Gospel and the Torah were actually right at that time when the Quran was revealed, and then I noticed that we have examples of the Bible from that time, and it all just didn't add up. And when I saw all those contradictions between the Quran and the Bible, when I saw how the Bible sounds compared to how the Quran sounds, the Quran in the beginning of the Quran, it even begins right away bashing non-Muslims, bashing all those who don't believe in it, telling them that they will go to hell, that they are deaf, dumb, and blind. Comparing that to the Bible, where it talks about so many stories, about so many inspirations and stuff like that, I saw that there is something not right about that. And going further about that, I wanted
to ask about that. Some people are saying my volume is too low. Let me try and adjust this real quick, because some people are saying it's fine, and other people are saying it's too low. Let me turn mine up a little. Check, one, check. All right, that's about as good as I can get without going into the controls, which I don't want to do during a live stream. So I'll try and talk a little bit louder here. But now, what you said is interesting about what we call the Islamic dilemma, namely that you saw it as a problem that the Quran affirms scriptures, but if you go to those scriptures, you see that they don't line up with Islam, but they're supposed to. And so historically, Muslims who realized this, Muslims who recognized this, historically, if you're a Muslim in a Muslim land and you know that the Quran is affirming the scriptures of the Jews and Christians, and you go to these and you find out that the scriptures of the Jews and Christians don't line up with Islam, it makes sense to say, hey, maybe the Quran is wrong here. But in a Muslim land, you're not exactly free to say that there's a problem here. And so what actually happened in Muslim lands where people didn't want to get their heads chopped off was to say that the scriptures have been corrupted. But you don't get that impression from the Quran. You get that from recognizing that the Torah and the Gospel don't line up with what the Quran says. And so you have to just say, well, it's been corrupted. So notice, this would be like me saying, hey, if you want to know if I'm a prophet, go down to the river over there, and you're going to see a big sign, and that sign is going to say, David Wood is a prophet. And you go down to that sign, and that sign says, David Wood is not a prophet. Don't believe him. He's a liar. And you say, David, you told me the sign is going to say that you're a prophet, but it says you're a false prophet. And I say, the sign must have been corrupted. Well, that's not what I said. I said, you're going to go down there and the sign, the sign's going to say that I'm a prophet. Likewise, the Quran says, you go to the Torah, you go to the Gospel, you find out that Islam is true, you find out that Muhammad's a prophet, the scriptures are inspired and preserved and authoritative, and so you have to believe in these scriptures. Christians and Jews have to obey these scriptures. But you actually go to them, and you would find out if you go with the Torah of the Gospel, Muhammad turns out to be a false prophet. And so the conclusion should be, hey, there's a problem here. But the conclusion among many Muslims is, they must have been corrupted. That's not what it said. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's always a question of whether certain arguments can actually have an impact on a Muslim. And I know a Muslim, Abdul Murray, who was a former Shia Muslim, who started studying the Bible specifically because he noticed that the Quran over and over again was telling him to go to the Bible. But you're here saying you were able to recognize this as a problem for Islam.
Absolutely. Well, there are some examples I can give for that I had at the very beginning. I always tell Muslims, and I would suggest every Muslim to go and pick up those books, to pick up the New Testament and the Old Testament, for example, and start reading that, and to see that there is something wrong about all of the story that the Quran tells you. For example, I thought there is so much inconsistency about Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac, for example. The Quran tells the whole story about Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac in a very different way, while in the Bible, where the whole story originated, it talks about Isaac, for example, being brought on the altar for the test. In the Quran or in Islam, it is suddenly Ishmael. Why? And how did the Jews and the Christians come together and seriously manage to change that whole thing and make everyone accept that? How did that happen? I'm sorry, I can't believe that. Other things like the Kaaba, for example. When you ask why the Kaaba is not mentioned in the Bible, since the Kaaba is such an important thing to Allah, that it is the most important place on earth, then if Allah is the same God who also revealed the Bible, the older books, then the Kaaba must have been also mentioned in the Bible, right? But when you ask Islamic scholars about that, when you ask your local Islamic teacher about that, they will either make misrepresentations of the Bible and say it is actually mentioned here and there, or they will just tell you, well, you shouldn't even think about that because those books have been corrupted. But seriously, I mean, so many people believed in those books, so many people followed those religions, and somehow those people all could come together and completely erase the memory of the Kaaba from all the minds of Christians and Jews. That's impossible. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, there is that one point, there is that Islamic dilemma point. There is also the other point that so many things that must have been mentioned in those books are just not mentioned, and that's just illogical. It doesn't make any sense.
So, obviously, some things started bothering you about Islam. Are there any other things that started to cause problems here?
Well, yeah. Those inconsistencies were the problems. Well, so many other things were problems. I mean, I thought about many scientific issues in the Quran, for example, many scientific errors in the Quran that just didn't add up. About how the sun is moving, about how the sun is moving around the earth and following the moon. And I don't know, so many other things, many ethical issues, many moral issues that were just unacceptable for me because I didn't grow up in a Muslim world. I grew up in Germany, and I really liked the way people think about humanity and about morals and about respecting each other, about respecting women, for example. And then I'm going into the Islamic scripture, and the Islamic scripture tells me that women are less intelligent, that women are stupid, that women have lesser rights, that men can beat their wives, and so many other things, that you can kill people based on so many things, like apostatizing from the religion. Even at the end, when I was thinking about the possibility of leaving Islam, and I learned more and more about how Islam deals with apostasy, I thought that's the worst thing. I really shouldn't be doing that. But I didn't really think that. I mean, that was the first thought, but that even provoked me even more to question the religion and to go towards apostasy, because I could not believe that Almighty Allah, who gives me this religious scripture and who wants me to believe in it, also tells other Muslims in the world to kill me if I leave this religion. It just didn't make sense to me that Allah, who presents himself as the merciful and the almighty and this and that, would order regular other people to kill you for leaving the faith. That's the moral side of the story, for example. I just couldn't come to accept such things. But aside from that, there are also many other logical issues. I mean, I talked about those so often. I'm still talking about these things,
So you have a couple different things going on here. One, you have sort of an internal incoherence, namely that the Quran is affirming scriptures that fundamentally contradict the Quran, and so the Quran would just be incoherent on this point. And then factual errors, and then some moral issues. So they didn't tell you in Germany that the sun sets in a muddy pool?
No, they didn't. I have no idea.
What kind of school did you go to?
No one told me about it. My whole life is a lie.
Okay, so and by the way, so if you're noticing things that you have a problem with, so the Quran's description of the universe, or the Quran's the Quran's comments about women and unbelievers, and Muhammad's claims to kill apostates, things like that. Because if you're going through Bukhari, you're gonna see a bunch of stuff in addition to the Quran. Did you go out and try to seek Islamic responses to these things and say, okay, I need to try and reconcile these things, and maybe get some peace of mind that way?
I did, especially what you mentioned right now is actually something very relevant to this. The sun sinking in a muddy spring. I was stuck on that the first time. I was stuck on that the second time when I read the Quran, and the second time I thought, I really can't do anything with this information, but I should also not question this, because questioning this is horrible. I shouldn't be doing that. But I just couldn't resist, and I went online to see all the discussions about it, to see all the things about it that Islamic apologists, for example, say to make sense of that Quran verse. And they say, for example, the Quran verse says that Dhul Qarnayn went to one side of the earth and he saw the sun setting in a muddy spring. Reading that, it makes no sense, which is, by the way, ironic, because many Muslims tell you to just read the Quran and you will believe in Islam. But online, you see that people are trying to tell you that, what the Quran meant is that actually Dhul Qarnayn saw it that way. It was actually from his perspective, but the Quran doesn't say that. The Quran clearly says that he found it that way.
And in addition, for Muslims who believe that Muhammad is, according to Islam, the greatest interpreter of the Quran, Muhammad said in a Sahih Hadith in Sunan Abu Dawud, where he was with one of his companions, and he asked one of his companions if he knows where the sun goes when it sets. His companion said, "No, you're the prophet. You're the one who knows." And Muhammad said, "It goes to set in a pool." So and notice there's not one word about Dhul Qarnayn in this story. So you can't say this is just the way it's appearing to Dhul Qarnayn. He reached some body of water or something like that. This is Muhammad explaining where the sun goes. So a Muslim who says what the Quran really means there is something else is basically saying he understands the Quran better than Muhammad did.
Yeah. Well, at that point, I saw that there are some controversies about that hadith that don't actually make sense, because there are many other hadith that have the same authenticity level as that hadith that are somehow accepted as completely authentic by the same Islamic apologists who view that hadith as problematic. But I thought, okay, that's even more messed up. But then I went on, I thought, even if I accepted that hadith is in some way problematic, which it is not, and I want to say here, it's not problematic at all. Even if I accepted that hadith is problematic, there are other hadith that reference the same thing without that ending, without Muhammad saying that it lands in a pool. But the wording of those hadith also include that the sun goes somewhere at night. And there is also another hadith which you surely know, where Muhammad says that the sun goes to prostrate in front of Allah. Before the throne of Allah. And I thought, seriously? The sun doesn't go anywhere. The sun, from its own perspective, doesn't go anywhere. The sun is there. It doesn't go anywhere at night. If it's night here, it's day over there. I mean, that's basic knowledge nowadays. Did Muhammad not know that? Of course, I didn't think to myself, did Muhammad not know that back then? But that's what my mind wanted to think. But I was constantly suppressing those things.
Now,
but
along those lines, did you notice that you had to suppress certain thoughts in that way that you wouldn't necessarily have had to suppress as far as German culture, because you're kind of a dual culture person? Have you noticed that was a much stronger psychological factor given your Islamic culture than it was German culture?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you mean to understand this correctly, you mean if
like
the Islamic
you have to block certain strands of thought. Because,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Germany. I grew up going to school and teachers telling us to question everything, to think about everything, to use our mind always. That's the general German culture. You know, that you should always pursue knowledge, that you should always challenge your ideas, and this and that. That's what I learned in Germany, in the German culture. When I went to Turkey, I saw that people don't think that way at all. And Turkey is just the beginning of Islamic culture, of the Islamic world. If you go deeper into Islamic culture, to Iraq, for example, where I have been twice as well, it's much, much worse. But Turkey is only the beginning. And Islamic culture, if you stop thinking about Turkish culture and focusing on Islamic culture, since I was so religious back then at that stage, it's even worse. I mean, in Islamic culture, you are told, you are even in an hadith. I'm sure you know about the hadith. Someone comes to Muhammad and asks a question. Muhammad says to him, Satan comes to you and says, who created this, who created that, until he comes and asks, and makes you ask who created Allah. If he comes to you, I don't remember the exact wording, but seek refuge in Allah, you know, something like that. Stop wasting your time with such idle thoughts and seek refuge in Allah. That's the main mentality, and that's a very well-known hadith in the Islamic world. You are always taught that what your religious authority, what those people are telling you, what the Quran tells you, is the exact absolute truth. What is beyond that, all the knowledge that you get beyond that, is in no way a contradiction to that. Even if it is a contradiction, it is actually not a contradiction. If you come to the conclusion that it is a contradiction, then it's you who is faulty, not the Quran, not the Islamic authority. It's you who is faulty. That's always the mentality that is presented to you in the Islamic world, in Islam. And that's how you are always taught to suppress your own ideas. Yeah. Well, what I wanted to add to leaving Islam, to one of those strong points of leaving Islam, is that I had this one atheist friend in Turkey, very surprisingly, because people identifying themselves openly as atheists in Turkey or in other countries is usually not very well received by the general population, to say the least.
So this was an open atheist, not a secret atheist.
No, he was an open atheist. And he was getting in a lot of trouble because he was an atheist. Mm-hmm. And I actually approached him saying, you know, I wanted to challenge him about his atheism, about his critical views on Islam. And I wanted to challenge him. And I sat down with him. I said, I can discuss with you, and you will be wrong in the end. And he said, you shouldn't really challenge me. You shouldn't do that. You will be sad in the end. You know, he was challenging me too in response. And I thought that's not possible. I'm very firm in my belief, and my belief is completely right. Then he came to me and said, when you read the Quran, did you notice something about Muhammad's personal life? Then he reminded me of a Quran verse. I can't really remember numbers very well. I have a problem with numbers, but you know what I'm talking about. It's your favorite Quran verse. He said, in this Quran verse, Allah speaks to the Muslims and says, don't enter Muhammad's house if you're not invited, and don't sit there too long once you are done eating. Please, not please, disperse immediately after you are done with whatever you are doing. And then in the same verse, it also goes on and says, also, by the way, while saying this, don't marry Muhammad's wives after he is dead. And if you're speaking to them, please speak behind a veil. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he was like, go home again and read that Quran verse. You have read it, but read it again. Look at it again, over and over again. Do you really want to tell me that is an Almighty Allah who tells Muslims in 2011, you know, to do this? I mean, what exactly is the purpose of that Quran verse? And I went home and opened the Quran and read that again, and that set me in a very bad mood that I couldn't really come out of. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean. I mean, the Quran focuses so much, Allah's perfect word for all humankind focuses so much on Muhammad's personal life, on things that happened around Muhammad, that it becomes just ridiculous when you put all those verses together that deal just with Muhammad's personal life. I can't. It's just very weird to believe that an Almighty Allah who wants to give you the Quran as an eternal law for all humankind would tell you about such things about marrying Muhammad's wives and not entering Muhammad's house and leaving Muhammad's house immediately because he might get upset and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. Those things just bothered me for so long that I just couldn't stay in there for much longer anymore.
And for people who don't understand the problem here, right? So you can go look it up. It's Surah 33 verse 53. But this little story, right, about Muhammad not wanting people coming over, hanging out, talking him to death, asking him all kinds of questions, because he'd rather be spending his time with his 9 or 11 wives or whatever he had at this time. So instead of Muhammad saying, "Hey, could you quit hanging out?" he says, "Guys, I would never tell you not to come over here hanging out with me, but Allah's telling you to." Right? I'm too shy to say that story, but I just got a verse from Allah, and He's telling you that you need to quit coming over and annoying me. And the Muslim justification here is that, well, it's giving you a principle about not being annoying to people. But no, it's not. This is only talking about Muhammad here, right? This is about Muhammad. This is about not annoying Muhammad. If Allah had wanted to say, "Hey, don't overstay your welcome at someone's house," He could have said that, and then that principle would have applied to other Muslims. They would have said, "Oh, okay, I'm not supposed to hang out at people's houses annoying them with questions. Therefore, I shouldn't do that to Muhammad." So He could have made that a sort of blanket moral principle. Or just, something that's polite to do. But that's not what the Quran says. The Quran doesn't lay this down as some general principle that you have to follow. It's, hey, this is talking about Muhammad here. And you find a lot of passages in the Quran that are like this. They have no real purpose other than helping Muhammad out. So, Muhammad's relationship with, and by the way, in the same it's in the same chapter. Chapter 33. This is if you want to be critical of Islam and you want to read one chapter, read chapter 33 of the Quran. That's where you have adoption abolished and the relationship with Zayd, and there's a textual variant in 33:6 and so on, and you have Aisha saying that the chapter was originally revealed with 200 verses, and more than two-thirds of those verses came up missing. So you have all kinds of problems with this passage, but the general principle, yes, as a Muslim, you can say, well, I just believe that's what Allah wants. But if you are at all questioning, and you look at this and you see this over and over and over again with Muhammad in the beginning of chapter 66, where the background of the revelation is that Muhammad got caught having sex with his slave girl, Mary the Copt, and his wife Hafsa catches him in her bed with his slave girl. And Muhammad's like, don't tell Aisha. And she goes and tells Aisha. And then Muhammad says, fine, I swear by Allah, I will never, ever, ever sleep with my slave girl again. And then Surah 66, verses 1 to 2 come down saying, Muhammad, I didn't tell you to take that oath. So you break that oath. You break that oath to your wives. You go back to having sex with your slave girl. You've got that. You've got Sauda, which is, Sauda thinks that Muhammad's about to divorce her because she's gotten old and unattractive by now. And she says, look, just don't divorce me because then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. I don't have a lot of marriage prospects on the horizon. So please just don't divorce me. Any time that you would spend with me, you can go spend that extra time with Aisha. And Allah praises this. He says, yes, good. It's good to come to these kinds of arrangements. So you find these things, and if you really want to be a Muslim, can you justify them and say, well, even if I don't understand them, they're still true? Yes, you can. But if you are at all thinking about whether these things are true, it's sort of in your face obvious that a lot of the Quran has no purpose other than justifying Muhammad's thoughts or his sexual desires or things like that. And again, that's just one of the issues, because you brought up the moral concerns and the scientific concerns and the internal incoherence and so on. So where did all this lead
I would say.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say to kind of summarize it, to make it clear, Muslims believe, number one, that the Quran was always with Allah, and that the Quran was always planned ahead, even before the existence of humankind, so that Allah created this book from the very beginning, regardless of Muhammad, and this was the law for humankind. Muslims also believe that this book, the Holy Quran, is the law for all humankind, even if we live until the year 4000. That's the eternal law, and speaking to all humans, to each and every human on earth directly. But then, three, you see that most of the Quran verses, that many Quran verses, especially Quran verses like that one, were just revealed when Muhammad suddenly had an issue with something and Allah had to step in and say something. For example, in that Quran verse that I just mentioned, if you read the hadith about the context of that Quran verse, it's clearly reported that Muhammad was annoyed because people were sitting too long inside, and he was trying to make them understand that he wants them to go away. He got up and walked around a few times, went forth and back, and people just didn't understand that he wanted them to be gone. And in the end, he was so mad that he came back, and then he suddenly revealed that Quran verse. Allah suddenly revealed that Quran verse, and in 2018, you are reading that Quran verse as Allah's direct word to you.
Yeah, and this is amazing for people who don't understand. Like I'm just thinking of like the first Muslims who were there, right? Because you would understand, hey, you're a Muslim, this is your prophet, he's the seal of the prophets. Man, I really have some questions for him, right? This is a guy who can answer my questions. So, hey, he just invited me over for dinner. Oh, man, I want to make sure I get there early. Yeah, honey, talking to your wife, honey, I need to get over there early so I can ask this guy these questions that have been bothering me. And so you go over there, you're all interested, and Muhammad's being really polite, and he's not telling you to get out, but all of a sudden he walks out with this revelation. I mean, just imagine if I said I'm a prophet. Hey, I'm a prophet here. I've got these revelations there. They're God's eternal word, right? I mean, this is from all eternity. God had all eternity to get his word exactly the way he wanted, to put all of his great moral principles, all of his scientific claims. He had all eternity to get it. There's no human input here. These aren't human writers. This is the word of Allah. And by the way, you guys keep making me sandwiches. I wouldn't say this, but God just told me this revelation. David, he won't tell you that he doesn't like sandwiches, but I know the truth, and I'm telling you, stop making him sandwiches. Wouldn't you think that's a little weird, right? Wouldn't that bother you just a little bit that I'm getting this revelation suddenly about sandwiches that's in God's eternal work? Well, guess what? That's the same thing you find over and over again in the Quran. All these situations that would arise from Muhammad. When he's being questioned about something or someone's annoying him, and it's Allah to the rescue with a verse that Allah has had in his pocket for all eternity and had no purpose other than helping Muhammad out of a situation when didn't really need to do that, right? I mean, Muhammad could have said, hey, guys, stop bothering me. Or it could have been laid down as a general principle. Don't overstay your welcome. But instead, it's just, no, Allah flying in like Superman or something like this, rescuing Muhammad like Lois Lane. So anyway,
yeah, and Allah even says he might be too shy to tell you, so I'm telling you.
He's too shy. Yeah, he'll chop your head off. He'll chop your head off if you leave his religion, but he's too shy to tell you quit hanging out at my house all day. Right? All right, good. All right, so this somehow led to leaving Islam. So what happened there?
What happened there? Well, after I left Islam, it was, you have this thing. It's not something common. It's not something exclusive to former Muslims. Also to people who usually change their worldview and their ideologies completely. But I would say it's even stronger in Islam. That if you leave the religion, you suddenly enter a state that every ex-Muslim can tell you about that where you find yourself suddenly in a state of depression because all your lifelong, in your childhood, you were indoctrinated that this is Allah's absolute, complete, true word, and that you can't ever question this. And then you see the logical flaws behind that, and then you end up suddenly there thinking everything I have built my life upon is suddenly a lie. That's all not there, not existing. So yeah, I found myself suddenly in a big depression again, just when I was over it. But I think for another 1 year after I left Islam, I wasn't entirely sure about religious beliefs and about deities and about God and this and that. So I went on studying studying different religions. People ask me that very often. And I did do that. I went into studying Christianity and Judaism and other religious beliefs and so on. And I didn't find, and I can openly, clearly say this, I said this from the very beginning, I didn't find any other religion as morally disturbing, as disgusting as Islam was. And I can clearly say that I don't think all religions are equally bad. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. I didn't find that all religions are equally bad, but I couldn't come to believe in deities and in all of that anymore. But I wanted to get out of Turkey, definitely.
One second. A couple of questions along those lines. One, you don't have to talk about this because I don't know what you want to share, but any thoughts on like family reaction? Like, did you tell your family that you're no longer a Muslim, or?
No, I didn't. No,
it's not. Do they know today?
No, they don't.
Hold on.
I know.
You're on
That's
YouTube. Hold on.
I know.
You're on YouTube. Your channel is exploding. You haven't even been up a year, and you're already at like 45,000 subscribers. It took us years, me and Nabil, years to get anywhere close to that. And they still don't know.
They don't know.
They're not big on YouTube.
Well, no.
Not big YouTube watchers.
My father is actually quite interested in technology and in internet and stuff like that, but I don't know how they still didn't find me. Because if you look for my name online, you find me. You find the activities that I do. You find articles that I wrote, videos that I made, and this and that. You can easily find that. But no, they didn't find me yet.
What do you think their reaction would be? Kind of just because there are lots of people interested in sort of the Islamic mindset. Like, how much of a concern is that to you? Because I saw this with we talked about this on the live stream with you. How big a concern that was with my friend Nabil not wanting to really hurt his, and unless you're a complete jerk, that should play a role. I'm talking about you people out there who are watching. Unless you're just a total jerk, it should be in your minds of, wow, these parents are, they really believe in Islam, and if they see their son go somewhere else and leave the religion, knowing how big that is, one, they'd be extremely concerned about his salvation. They'd be embarrassed if other people found out about that. Like I've noticed that many Muslim parents who have kids who've left Islam, it's like they feel like they were bad parents. They didn't do a good job raising you. And so, whereas if you think about it, the reverse is true. You have to have, like when Nabil left Islam, you have to have some pretty hard moral convictions to say, I'm going to go wherever I believe the facts lead, no matter the cost. It's actually a sign that they might have done a good job raising you. But what are your thoughts as far as your family?
Well, I was always free-minded, so it was no problem for me to suddenly go to a complete different part of the world and do my own stuff. But I would say a few things. In many Muslim families, for many Muslims, leaving Islam and telling people about that can be very dangerous. It can really be very dangerous. Your own family can be violent towards you and can deprive you of so many things in life. I can't say the same thing about my family. I have to be very, very clear and very honest here. My parents are not fundamentalist, literalist. They are Sufis. Sufis have usually a very different way of handling such things. But what they would do, I think, if they found out, they would call me and to ask me about it, to just try and figure out how this happened. They would be very sad. I imagine my mom would be crying for months. But that's also one reason why I didn't tell them, why I just couldn't tell them. I just couldn't go to my family, especially to my mother, and say, hey, I left this, I don't believe in it anymore.
Yeah,
because In Islam,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, in Islam, religious belief is so firm and protecting all people around you from falling off that and from even going a little bit astray is so strong that my mother would be devastated, and I was even afraid she would be. I'm still afraid she would have major problems because she had major skin conditions that were triggered always by sadness and stuff like that. And thinking about all those things, thinking about how emotional she is, I just couldn't do that. They are still my parents in the end. I still love them in the end, and I just couldn't do that. So I just leave it. I know it will be bad in the end anyway, but I'm just leaving it to that, I guess.
Well, this is kind of a this is how I think with regards to you not believing in God, right? If you had become a Christian, then you might expect a Christian to say, "Oh, I have to go tell my parents because." And
Yes.
by the way, it's not that quick. Nabil did not want to tell even after he became a Christian, he did not want to tell his parents. His parents found out when they came over to his apartment one day and he wasn't there, and his computer was open, and had a discussion about his baptism on the computer. So yeah, he did not want to tell them. But if you're a if you're a Christian or a Muslim, you believe that these things are matters of eternal significance, and so it's very important for people to be on the same page as you. If you're a Muslim, you want to, as the Quran commands, you want to invite all to the way of Islam. If you're a Christian, you want to share the gospel, and but if you're an atheist, it's kind of not as important to have exactly the right doctrine, as long as you're not going around killing and slaughtering people. And so
Completely.
yeah, so basically if you're an atheist, I used to be an atheist, but back then it didn't bother me. Oh, my grandma's a Christian, I need to change her mind or something like that. And so as an atheist, you'd be pretty comfortable with your parents who aren't violent, going their entire lives as Muslims, and just living the best lives they can.
Well, I thought about that a lot.
Have.
I thought about that a lot. I thought if I converted to Christianity, which they suspected at some point, I should come to that actually. Then I would care about that. I would care about their afterlife, about how they live their life, and this and that. And I would definitely go to them and talk to them about that. Maybe not immediately, maybe also after 2 years or so. But I would actually care about that. But now that I don't believe that anything will happen to them when they are. That I don't know what will happen to them at all. I can't go to them and try to convince them that they need to leave Islam and they need to join my view of the world, because they are good people. I mean, my parents have always been good people. I think I have been a better person than many people that I have seen because of my parents, and I'm thankful for that. Me being a Muslim doesn't mean you are a horrible person. I want to say that too. My parents are good people. I would say that. I have never seen them make any bad things about anything. I've never seen them fight at home or anything. So why should I go now when they have lived most of their life and tell them to leave that when they are perfectly fine with their lives? Of course, I would be happy to see them leave all their weird Sufi cultish practices in the past, but it doesn't bother me to such an extent that I need to go and tell them about that. Mm-hmm. By the way, I don't even know if they know about my current state and just don't want to talk to me about it because they somehow worked it out by themselves. But at some point, when I told them that I'm going to marry an American person who they assumed was directly a Christian, my mother suspected that I converted to Christianity. But I kind of tried to assure her that didn't happen. But we didn't talk very much about that. But she would still have a problem if I converted to Christianity. But she would be a bit more easier about that. But if she learned that I actually stopped believing in God altogether, that would be devastating to her. Because they have this thing. If someone is a Christian, that person is kind of still acceptable. If it's a Jew, let's not talk about that. Mm. And atheists don't even exist. They are completely immoral pigs in the world.
Mm.
That's the view. So it's a tough situation. I still didn't get to that. I don't know what will happen when they find out and confront me about that. I guess they would probably not talk to me for a while and then afterwards try to convince me again and in the end stop it completely, I guess. I don't know.
So you put yourself in the atheist category rather than the like agnostic category?
No, actually I don't. We could talk about this forever, but I would say I have a problem with the label atheist because of the way atheists behave online very much. People who call themselves anti-theists and atheists, it's obnoxious, and I don't even want to call myself an atheist online very often because of that. But as far as I could describe myself, I would say I don't believe in the one God. Although I don't have a problem with Judaism and I don't have a problem with Christianity at all. I find Christianity beautiful. And I even told my wife recently, I wish it was true, but I can't believe in it. Mm-hmm. But about anything else, I just think we have our universe. We have this thing that we call the observable universe. We don't even know what's beyond that. We can't even know that. So I can't come and take the position of Richard Dawkins and say, well, there is definitely nothing beyond that, because you don't know. Even science says observable universe. We don't know what's beyond that. So I don't know what is the origin of life, what is the aftermath of that. Much proof points to lots of things that we have nowadays, but I would always say I'm a free thinking seeker and sort of an atheist in that sense of the one God, but that's all. Okay, I'm not your Christian bashing guy.
So at first it sounded like you were saying you don't want the label atheist just because there are a lot of like overly aggressive atheists. And just so people know, back when I was an atheist in like the late 80s and early 90s, and there were very few. I didn't know. I knew other atheists. Like a lot of the smartest kids in school were atheists, but none of them were really. I was the most aggressive, and I was the only aggressive one that I could think of. Whereas now that's much more mainstream. But you and I were talking earlier this week about when someone leaves Islam. There are kind of two main paths. That they either become Christians because, they've abandoned belief in Muhammad, but they still believe in God. They still believe in Jesus. Now, okay, we can believe in the Bible. So they still, they believe in Mary and stuff like that. They still believe all these things, and you're kind of one step away from Christianity once you abandon Muhammad and his objections to Christianity, or they're not religious at all. This is all a bunch of nonsense. Christianity, Islam, and so on. And then once you sort of go that route, there's this other fork in the road. It's what's my attitude here? Is it Islam is a problem and other things I'm not really that worried about, or sort of everyone who disagrees with me is the problem. And so I kind of have to go after everyone. And so you're in that former category of.
Well, I'm in this category. Islam is the biggest problem in terms of religion and political system that we have today in our time, and I think Islam is also, I would say, probably pretty much the only religious problem that we should really all be focusing on. I don't think any other religion in that sense is nearly as dangerous and nearly as bad as Islam.
No, you're going to get in some trouble over that one. Now.
I always do. Yeah. I always do. Many anti-theists, atheists who are against all religions and don't even know about half the religions in the world tell me that I should criticize all of them equally. But that comes very often from American atheists, from American anti-theist atheists. The definition doesn't even end. And but I tell them very clearly, you have no idea what you're talking about. You in America, you are in your chair, in your basement, or in your office, or in your car somewhere in the street in America, and you can yell at people about your disbelief, about how you disagree with Christianity, about how you find it disgusting and bad and this and that. You can do all of those things. You can put bumper stickers on your car. You can wear shirts that say "F God" or whatever, and no one cares. You can't do the same thing if you are in Pakistan and you are a former Muslim. You can't tell anyone about it. You can't even tell your parents about it. You have to create pseudonyms online to criticize Islam, but still risk being arrested, being caught by a lynch mob and killed in the middle of the street, or facing the death penalty. And who are you to equate your former religion and your experience to my former religion and my experience? Don't tell me that. Seriously, I have absolutely no tolerance for those people who think all religions are equally bad and we should all criticize them equally. That's complete nonsense. Those people have no idea what they're talking about.
All right, so you rejected Islam and decided to that we went off on I took us on that big tangent, and thank you for answering. But where I jumped in there was you were just getting to leaving Turkey. So how long ago was this?
Well, I lived in Turkey between 2016 and last year, so I came to America only a year ago. But yeah, after I left,
and you immediately started a YouTube channel.
No, I didn't. Oh well, after I came, yes,
Yeah.
I did. I did. Well, what first happened is I was looking for online stuff to criticize Islam, to criticize religion in general, and in fact, in the beginnings, I joined that annoying group, an annoying mob online, and started criticizing all religions. But I was still focused mostly on Islam, and what actually happened is that I was following atheist pages online when I was still in Turkey and when I was going through my depressions, and I was also planning to move to Europe in the meantime. And I met my wife online, who had back then an Instagram page, and she was like among the only people who were daring to criticize Islam very harshly while also criticizing Christianity to some extent, because she was a former Christian. And we somehow came very close. She came to visit me in Turkey, which was an impossible thought to me back then. But we started to get along so well that we decided to just do this, to move to Turkey. But after I met her, I also started doing my own stuff on Instagram, and I created the Prophet character on Instagram. And I had my experience on Instagram about getting death threats from every corner and stuff like that. So back then it was all just parody, and it was mostly emotion charged, I would say. I would openly admit, and I still had the idea that all religions are crap and stuff like that. But I grew out of that. I came to realize that's really not the case, and I just keep studying religion. I keep studying all these things, and I came to the conclusion that Western anti-theist atheists kind of try to drag us all into this all religions are equally bad and we should criticize them all, and Christianity is just as bad a narrative. But yeah, it took a while for me to come to America. I gave up my plans in Europe and we decided to come together in America to get married. I came to America last year, in the middle of last year. And only a few months after I arrived here, I had plans already, and I launched my YouTube channel and started focusing on Islam.
Well, if you're in America, what's your address? just kidding
Central.
about that. All right, so one or two more questions, and then we'll take some questions from over here. Oh wait, I gotta before I lose this comment here. Renee here gets the comment of the day. She was commenting on what we were quoting from chapter 33 about Muhammad and his revelations. His revelations about people coming over to his house and so on. And Muhammad's too shy. So she commented on the Muhammad's too shy with, he wasn't too shy when he was engaging with Mary the Copt. Anyway, that one, that was actually bad because I glanced at it when you were talking about, being depressed and stuff, and then I started giggling, even though it was not the time for giggling.
That's totally fine. You can laugh about anything.
All right, now one more quick one here. I'm looking at your channel right now. I had to pull this up, and I'm looking and I see Muhammad's rape culture, the age of Aisha, Muhammad's child bride. All of these 72 juicy virgins, the no compulsion in Islam lie, oh my goodness, the pervert prophet. You called a video the pervert prophet. Now
that's my personal favorite. That's amazing. Go watch that.
All right, everyone watch the pervert prophet here. Someone put a link as soon as we're done for people to watch that. But I have a quick question, because I hear from so many people in the West, lots of Christians especially, that if you want to convince a Muslim, the key is to be as nice as possible, and never to criticize Muhammad or the Quran. If you criticize Muhammad or the Quran, the discussion is immediately going to end, and that Muslim will never listen to you again. And I keep hearing this from people in the West, even people who are educating others about how to interact with Muslims. You don't bring these things up, and that's the way to ultimately reach them. So how are you getting this so hopelessly wrong here?
I completely disagree with that point. I think that method is not very successful. It may sound a bit pessimistic of me to say that. I'm not trying to make it pessimistic, but I believe that most Muslims are not open to any form of change. If you engage them in any way, do whatever you want, they're not open to change. And I openly said many times before that my aim is never to go into the deepest, most fundamentalist Muslim's heart and convince him that Islam is not real. I don't have such an aim. I can't waste my energy on that, because I would lose a lot, especially my own energy, my own power, my own patience, if I really focus on something like that. I don't think that's a very effective way at all. I think those people that you can actually bring out of that religion are those people who are open to criticism, who are open to laughter, who are open to sarcasm, to satire. And I think making them get used to jokes about Islam, about Muhammad, about their most fundamental, most beloved values and, idols is the best way you can engage with them, and the best way you can actually bring them closer to leave Islam. I don't believe that you need to go and give them flowers and say, sweetie, that's wrong and stuff like that. That doesn't work. That never worked anywhere, I believe. Or maybe it works for a tiny minority, but I don't think that's in any way successful and effective.
All right. Well, one more question. I'm going to start putting up some. You won't be able to see them, but everyone else can see them. I'll go ahead and read them off to you. But we're going to take some questions from the chat here for 20 minutes or so. And so, if you don't want to answer something, you can just say you don't want to answer it. But while I'm pulling one up, where you plan on going from here?
I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do what I'm doing.
Going to keep on this route?
I will, yeah. I have no problem dedicating most of the rest of my life to enlightening people about this, to telling people about what this religion really is, because I think I need to make my motive clear. And I tried to explain that before, but I want to explain that more in a dedicated video. I mean, my motive is not to attack to attack Muslims and to cause trouble in the world, or to just make fun of this. My motive is actually very clear. I'm a Western person. I grew up with Western values that I loved, despite the Islamic and Turkish values that I had at home. And in our times, it's more and more common that people go out in the West and try to make themselves at home and tell people about what a beautiful religion Islam is, while completely misrepresenting that religion. If you look online, there are, for example, websites that talk about understanding Islam. That mentality, understanding Islam, because other people are misunderstanding Islam and misrepresenting Islam, and Muslims are coming here into the West to make people actually understand Islam and to present Islam in a completely wrong way in order to spread Islam the best way possible. And in the West, we have this weird, completely strange reaction to that we need to be tolerant about that we need to allow mosques here and there and people praying in the streets and preaching everywhere. And I have a major problem with that. I love the West. I love Western culture. I love how things are here. I love competition. I love individualism. I love how things are going here, and I want to protect that. I come from that culture, from that belief, and I want to tell everyone, every single person here, that you don't need Islam. You don't need more Islam. You shouldn't take more Islam, and you shouldn't tolerate intolerance.
All right. Well, thank you. Let's take a couple of questions here. Not sure if you want to take this
I want
one?
to say something very quick,
Oh,
David,
go
if you
ahead.
want to save that. I've seen that in the comment section. Some people understood that my wife is Christian. That's not the case. She's ex-Christian. So she's kind of on the same path as I am.
Yeah, that's what
So,
I understood you as saying there. All right, quick. Someone said, will you ask the Apostate Prophet if incest is normal in Islamic Turkey and other countries?
it is absolutely normal. I mean, you can check basic statistics. It's not even some big conspiracy theory. You can see that in Pakistan, the rate of inbreeding through cousin marriage is above 60%, I believe, even more. So some sources say. In Turkey, it is around the 30%. In other countries, it is 50%, 40%. I'm also, by the way, I'm very open and clear about this. I mean, people would insult each other about that, but I would also very openly say that in my family, cousin marriage is also quite a normal thing, because it's a normal thing in Islamic culture to marry your cousin and to make lots of babies with your cousins. I'm also a result of that.
So it's not brother sister marriage, stuff like that. It's
No.
like first cousin-ish.
Yeah, first cousin marriage. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
That's how I understood the question. I wouldn't think of incest as sister stuff.
no, you're right. By the way, guys, if you don't understand why that's bad, look it up. Right? Genetic mutations. Cousins carry lots of times you have genetic mutations, and if you marry someone who's completely different from you, they don't have those genetic mutations, and the kids are fine. If your cousins, you will very often have some of the same genetic mutations, and then your kids are in trouble. Their kids are in trouble. So just raises the chances of certain problems.
I made a video about that and made a very special thumbnail for that. You should.
I was scrolling down. Maybe they scrolled down ahead of me and were looking. This one is actually not a question for you, but for some reason someone must have posted a video about me because they keep my Twitter lit up. But David, did you accept the challenge from that Muslim Dawa guy from Speaker's Corner? Please confirm or deny that. Recently, like over the past, 2 months, there's been a bunch from Speaker's Corners guys. Adnan Rashid, someone named Mohammed Hijab or something like that, and Ali Dawow. So I've seen those guys. Now, one of those guys I know, Adnan Rashid, I know. I'm familiar with him. The other two guys, I don't recall ever watching of it. I may have, I don't know. Don't recall anything from them. But just to confirm here, and you can send them this video with this. You give them the timestamp so they know when to see this. Yes, I accept their challenge. Whether they're a team or they're talking like one at a time, I'm fine. I confirm that. Now, there are multiple ways they can do that. They can contact a mosque over here in the U.S. Anywhere in the U.S., I'll show up. Salafi Mosque, I don't care, I'll be there. Or they can contact the MSA, the Muslim Students Association, and there are tons of Muslim Students Associations at universities across America. Tell them to set up the debates. I would recommend 2 debates, like who was Muhammad and who was Jesus. That way it's nice and even, and those are 2 of the main questions. And if it makes anyone feel any better, I will debate all 3 of them on the same stage at the same time. So I don't know how I can say it any more clearly than that, ladies and gentlemen. I've been affirming that I'm willing to debate all day long and multiple times over the past month. So anyone who asks, go ahead and send them back to that little clip right there. Yes, the answer is yes. All right, I'm going to scroll through. Do you see any questions you want to answer? Are you looking through the comments there? Because
I was looking at different things also at the comments. If you want to direct some at me, that's totally fine with me.
All right, so now we're going to be taking questions for a few minutes. I'm scrolled way to the wrong end of these things here after that. Okay, we have a question here from Michelle Marie. David, ask him why he thinks Christianity is beautiful but doesn't believe it's the truth. And just from a philosophical note, something can be beautiful without being true, right? Like if someone claimed to be a prophet and said everyone love each other and do good to each other all the time and God loves everyone, and you could reject that person as a prophet and say, I don't believe this is true. I don't believe this is actually a guy speaking from God, even though the message there is beautiful. So that would be my initial thoughts on that. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to elaborate on that. I mean, I put, first of all, the main role models, the main characters of both religions side by side. And if you look at the Islamic role model, there's really not much we need to say about that. You know it all. But if you look at the role model in Islam, it's just a much different character. I would say I admire the character of Jesus. I admire the role model of Jesus in Christianity, and I think I have personal sympathy for that, and I have also sympathy for Christianity in general. For example, recently, quite a personal moment, I sat down with my wife and was just kidding about specific things and started reading verses from the New Testament, and I thought, this really is nice. This really is good. This is beautiful. You know, if you read the book, I also studied the New Testament to some extent. I wouldn't say completely. I would say to some extent, to be honest. And it just isn't as problematic as Quran is at all. Not even remotely. It doesn't even begin to be problematic if you think about being problematic in the Islamic sense. I think it's a very nice religion, especially if you look at how the religion is practiced today at mainstream Christianity. I would consider that something quite nice. Of course, there are things in Christianity that I have problems with, but there are problems in everything. I mean, I have problems in pretty much any kind of thing that I don't want to specifically follow for a reason. But I wouldn't consider Christianity to be a very bad religion. If I think about all the religions that are put in front of me, I would say that Christianity is, compared to others, a fairly beautiful religion, as I said before. But I just can't accept the idea of believing in the one God. And many people ask me about that, why I don't believe in God, and I have many reasons not to believe in God. But I usually don't want to speak about that because my activities focus on Islam, and I don't want to go on spreading atheism, spreading my ideas, and bashing all other religions and stuff like that. I might explain that at some point, but I just don't think it's necessary. But I really have very good reasons not to believe in that. I think continuously about such things, and I really have that.
All right, so just because there are lots of people over here asking that there were questions that they were asking, and a lot of the questions here are centering around why you reject Christianity, and if it were true, would you accept it? But you've kind of already given the answer. You don't believe in this idea of this one God here. But at the same time, you don't feel a need to go around sharing your reasons for rejecting God because you've got a different focus. So that would be sort of a lump response to these questions over here.
Yeah. I think if I started explaining my atheism, it would completely, go into a different direction, everything. And I just don't want to focus on that. But I just want to say I have no problem with those religions. I grew up in the West. I lived in 2 Western countries so far, and in the Islamic world. And it's obvious. I favor Christians. I favor Christianity. I have no problem with them at all. I can totally peacefully coexist with them and like them and be friendly to them. It's just about belief. It's just about theology. That's all.
All right. Now you have several questions over here, and I'm not even going to put them up here, but they're basically, where do you live and what's your real name? Now, guys,
I can tell you my real name. I have no problem with that.
No, I mean, you can, but don't do it here and respond, because it's kind of messed up, right? It sounds like, give us your name and your address.
Yeah.
We're not going to do anything.
I shared my name before.
Just announce it here on YouTube.
I shared my name before on my YouTube channel. I also wrote articles that I directly linked on my YouTube channel. I have no problem with that. But with the exact location that I live, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, and
I'm in America.
Yeah, I wouldn't. If I were you, I wouldn't even. See, I don't mind David Wood. Like, there are tons of David Woods. If you decide to go on a David Wood killing spree, there are going to be like thousands of dead David Woods along the way. If your name's like Nabil Qureshi or something like that, there's only a few. So it makes you much easier to find. So,
To be very clear, I don't believe that that there is a huge danger of Muslims going after me and trying to kill me. I don't believe that anything would happen to me. I believe people who actually want to go out and kill people who criticize Islam are not that many. An average person wouldn't just want to go out and do that.
yeah,
I'm not making conspiracy theories.
I mean, I have kind of two competing thoughts on that. One is, if you have someone like that who, hey, I'm ready to go out and kill and die, there are targets that are more high priority than I am.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so they're higher priority targets. So I feel reasonably safe. But the flip side is, I'm thinking in terms of percentages, right? I'm thinking if only 1% of people who say they're going to kill me actually would like to kill me and want to kill me and are thinking about killing me, that's still a significant number of people who would like to kill me. So
it is definitely.
Yeah. So it's kind of, hey, if they're going to kill me, I'm not hard to find. I speak at places and so on, but probably not going to give you like a roadmap or something to make it as easy as possible for you.
Yeah.
All right. This is actually a good one here. What are your thoughts on Western women who decide to convert to Islam? It seems like, especially on YouTube, that there are a lot of Western women choosing to convert. Now, think about this, right? We keep saying that Islam has this problem with women, and women are intellectually deficient, and their testimony is worth half that of a man, and they got their husband can treat them like a tilth. A tilth is a field that you plow into, and the Quran says that you plow your tilth however you want. And by the way, the historical background of that is a woman refused to have sex with her husband in a certain position.
Yeah.
And so the issue got brought to Muhammad, and the response from Allah is, you plow your wife however you want. So we point these things out, and yet there are all these Western converts who are women. So isn't it obvious that we're wrong and Muhammad was the greatest feminist who ever lived because all of these women are converting to Islam?
Well, I would say, I know I get very often very kind of sad and annoyed at the same time whenever I hear of Western women converting to Islam, because I have seen so many women who converted to Islam without even knowing about the religion properly, just because they wanted to get married to this one Muslim guy who lives somewhere in Morocco or Turkey or Egypt or whatever. And in so many cases, I have received so many emails, so many messages online since I started this, and it's not even so long ago since I started this. I'm sure you received them too, of women telling me sad stories of how they converted to Islam and moved to a Muslim country, and now they have no idea what they have no idea how to get out of this because they are completely stuck in there. They are depressed.
I get those all the time.
Yeah,
it's a situation where I'm getting these messages and can't really share them because so. Yeah,
I get them all the time. It's crazy, and I want to warn those people. Mm-hmm. There are fairly also some people who convert to Islam and then stay in that religion and practice that religion to some extent. But I would say seriously, if anyone even plays with the idea of coming close to Islam and converting to Islam eventually, maybe the first thing they should do is stop listening to that bearded guy who wants to tell you about how beautiful Islam is. Mm-hmm. Get yourself a Quran, get yourself the Hadith, start reading. You will definitely not join that religion. Don't make that mistake. Because I have personally never heard of a case of a man, but especially a woman, converting to Islam because they read the Quran and were so convinced about the faith and converted to Islam. I have never heard of that.
Yeah, I often say something similar. I've never met someone who converted to Islam after doing anything I would consider a careful study of Islam. I know several people who became Christians after doing a careful research into Christianity. But because I always ask people tell me, hey, I converted to Islam. How do you explain me? I said, oh, really? Why did you convert? And then if it's a guy, it's because I didn't understand the Trinity and Islam has this pure monotheism, and so I went there. Or I saw all these miraculous scientific insights in the Quran, and that's when I say, oh, really? What are they? And they have no clue. They just, something Zakir Naik said impressed them or something like that. Never bothered to actually go through and research. So that's what I hear from guys, and from women, it's usually I was walking around in my mini skirt and guys were hooting and hollering at me and I got so fed up with it. My Muslim friend told me that in Islam I would be respected, and so now I wear the hijab and people respect me. And notice there's nothing in there that involves an actual study of whether Islam is true. And so the sad situation about women converting to Islam in the West is Islam thrives in an atmosphere of ignorance. Because the Muslim preacher that you just referred to will say pretty much anything. He will add, what do you like? Right? Oh, you like science? The Quran is a scientific masterpiece.
That's that guy's aim.
Peace and tolerance? Islam means peace. That's what the word means. Oh, you believe in women's rights? Muhammad was the greatest feminist who ever lived. Islam is the religion for you. And if you are not actually willing to sit down and study, you are going to fall for something like that.
Let me tell you something. I was involved in a group when I was a religious Muslim. I was in a group that was very religious, very pious. I sat down there very often to study Islam thoroughly and to work together with those people and to try to invite people into either into Islam or into a more religious form of Islam, the way we practice it. The most basic thing you learn when you are out to invite people to Islam is don't be too harsh. Don't give them information that they can't handle at the beginning. Be soft, be gentle. Invite them closely into this religion. You can tell them all the things later when they ask you those questions. You should make it look more likable so that they can actually approach this religion and like it to some extent. They can learn about all those things later. That's the general attitude if you go out and want to convert people. And that's also the general attitude in many other groups, even in fundamentalist groups that go out to convert people to Islam. They tell each other that. Be soft in the beginning, you can tell the harsh stuff later. That's how they work. Mm-hmm. And most people fall for that. I only had recently a woman who texted me and who said, I just became a Muslim a few weeks ago because I was taught this and this and this, and now I'm in this community and I have no idea what to do because I watched your videos, and now I'm at the beginning again and I have no idea what to do. Great job.
It's often very difficult for women because here's a situation I see, because people don't know. I don't know if this statistic has changed, but as of like 10 years ago, I was reading in Islamic research, right? So this was a Muslim source telling Muslims that they need to do better in taking care of new converts, because the statistic in the United States as of about 10 years ago, so even if it's changed some, it's probably roughly in the same ballpark, was that there were between 15 and 30,000 converts to Islam each year, but that within 2 years, about half of them had left Islam. Over half of converts to Islam had left Islam within 2 years. Now, for a guy, that's usually not nearly as big a problem as it is for a woman, because the woman very often converts to Islam, marries a Muslim, gets pregnant, and now she's in a situation where she has a child and a Muslim husband. Even if she hasn't moved to a Muslim country, it's more costly for the woman to leave now, right? So we talk about the psychological pressures that are on Muslims to keep them from leaving Islam, and that lots of us aren't very familiar with these kinds of psychological pressures. But now a woman who, when she was deciding whether to be a Muslim or not, didn't have this deep psychological burden. Now she has a husband and a child, and it would wreak havoc in her life to leave Islam now, right? Because now she's tied into the community. Now her husband might leave her. Then there's going to be a custody battle. The child is affected. So much more difficult. And so the solution here would, on the one hand, the solution would be, hey, why not do a little research before you convert to things? But two, it falls down to the general population, right? When a Muslim preacher shows up and starts telling you, hey, Islam is the religion for women, there should be like 8 hands going up saying, we got some questions for you about that. We got some questions about these hadiths. We got some questions about these Quran verses, so that people aren't misled, right? So we know that there are people who, if the claims remain unchallenged, will convert just based on what someone's saying. They're not going to do the research. Well, there are people like that, but those of us who are willing to do research need to do our research and make sure that we share the information with other people, so that there are fewer and fewer people who are just completely ignorant about Islam, and therefore fewer people who are gonna fall for these kinds of things.
And we're not only dealing with Islamic apologists, we are also dealing with other people. We are directly confronted with tolerant, mostly left-leaning people in the West who are sugarcoating Islam and the Islamic community and everything so much, and are trying to shut us up so much that people easily fall for this, that people think it's tolerant and good to listen to an Islamic guy talk to you about his religion. Mm-hmm. And that helps those people who are just looking for those weak people to convert to Islam even more.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Here's a good one. Hi, David. Ask him, please, did he ask Allah to show him the answer and guide him before he left Islam? So this is involving your prayers. When you started seeing problems or started having doubts, did you go to Allah and say, please give me the answers here that I'm looking for to help me? Did you say things like that?
Well, yes. The question comes probably from a Muslim, I guess. But anyway, back then when I was a Muslim, I wasn't able to say this because it would be arrogant in my belief. But I can be very honest about the fact that when I was a religious Muslim, I haven't seen many people around me that were nearly as devout and religious and serious about their religion as I was. And I would, day and night, I would sit down, I would cry at night for an hour or two about I would pray to Allah and ask him to always let me follow him and never let me go astray, to always show me the truth, to always let me in his faith because I love it so much. And even when I was at the ends and when I had so many questions, I made those prayers all the time and I really meant it with all my heart. Anyone who tells me that I wasn't sincere can go and, I don't know, do something. But
I'm glad you kept that PG. I thought you were about to bump this up to an R rating here.
No. Yeah, but that's really how I felt about it. I mean, no one should tell me about how I should have asked Allah for help or be more sincere about it. I was so damn sincere, and no, it didn't help. Allah didn't help.
Okay, so we have the answers there. Here's another. This one's actually short. We could both give a quick response here, but this is a matter of kind of personal perspective here, but was Muhammad pretending to be a prophet, or did Muhammad really believe that he was a prophet? So this is kind of, I can see arguing this in either way, but what is your perspective? Was Muhammad like deliberately deceiving people, or do you think he actually was convinced that he's a prophet?
I think we could talk for hours about that. I think about that so often, but I still don't think I have the answer. I don't think anyone will have the answer, probably. I don't really know. I mean, it looks sometimes like he was really making a fool of people and really setting up things just the right way. Or maybe he really had some problems. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he actually believed in that because he had some problems. I don't know. But very often it looks like he was just using people, and he was just using the fact that people were believing in whatever he's saying, especially when he made just-in-time revelations. You know? Mm-hmm. But I don't have the answer to that. I can't judge that.
Yeah, so that's basically the situation that I'm in. There are all kinds of events that you can look and point to and say, this guy is taking himself very seriously as a prophet. It really looks like he believes what he's saying here. And there are other times where it looks like he's just making things up. And so, you could call it either way. The only thing I can't make sense of is that he was actually a prophet, right? That's the one thing I can't make sense of.
Yeah.
All right, another good one here. How do we combat the leftist, Islamophilic tendencies that put the rest of us in the West in harm's way? So, basically, there are people who, I mean, I don't want to underestimate this problem here, because it's basically politicians in general telling us Islam's a religion of peace. It's not just leftists. Almost everyone says that now.
George W. Bush said that.
It's Islam. Yeah, he's not a leftist, right?
Yeah.
So Islam's a religion of peace. We hear that from politicians, from almost everyone in the media, from almost the entire education system, from almost all of Hollywood. So there's one massive unified voice telling us that Islam is wonderful. How, in the name of common sense, can people like us here, people like us, the people in the chat section, you and me, what can we do about that sort of thing?
Well, I believe, first off, that many of those people, especially the big deal people who are very big in the media and in, I don't know, in Hollywood and in music and all that other stuff, I believe that most of them don't even believe in that, don't even believe that Islam is such a nice and beautiful religion that we shouldn't criticize it, that we shouldn't be talking about it in a negative way. They don't believe that. They just say that because they have to say that. An actor says that because he has to say that in order to be loved and not be shunned by people and not be fired by his agency or whatever. A musician has to say that so they can sell more and more of whatever they are making. Mm-hmm. And politicians have to say that so they're not kicked out by their council or whatever. Most of those big deal people don't actually believe that. They just want to restrict it to that. But there are problematic people out in the streets protesting who actually do believe that Islam is a nice religion and that people are just misrepresenting it. Well, to those, there's not really much you can do. You can just try reasoning with them. You can try showing them very bluntly what the religion really is about. But I think that's where ex-Muslims come in. I think that's where I could come in, where other ex-Muslims could come in and to talk to those people, because those especially left-leaning people have some form of special sympathy for minorities, mm-hmm. for non-white people. And although I'm pretty much white, I could be considered non-white. So I can claim that I'm also a minority and that I'm also affected. And I was in there. And here I am telling you about it. It's not what you think it is. I could go and do that, but how much can we really think with it? Can we really deal with that? I think one nice thing to do would be to make the public accept that ex-Muslims are a minority and that we need to be protected from bigotry that also comes from Muslims. I mean, if they play it that way, we should play it that way.
No, yeah, I mean, yes, and ex-Muslims really need to be hammering that home, because
yes,
when you protect Islam from criticism, you're treating an ideology as if it's a kind of race, and it's not. But if you're going to treat it that way, hey, there are people who will look upon me negatively because of my ideology. Well, then yeah, you just put ex-Muslims in that same category, that they've got problems now because of their ideology. And so if you're going to protect the minority of Islam, keep in mind the 1.6 billion strong minority here. I mean, it is a minority in terms of global population, but it's the second biggest religion in the world. So not exactly this little persecuted group here. But if you're going to treat that as a protected minority, then yeah, all the more people who've left Islam and are under death threat.
They are claiming. I mean, so many people who are speaking in the name of Muslims and Islam are claiming that they are, treated badly and people are intolerant against them and they are being shut down and people are racist against them and this and that. If I said the same things, I would be far more accurate about that. I would be actually saying the truth. I am the one who is shut down because of the opinions that I have, because of my opinions that are completely normal, because I have opinions about a religion. I'm not telling people to go and shoot people of a specific religious group or of specific religious backgrounds and skin colors. Mm-hmm. I am the one who's actually shut down because of my opinions. I could actually claim that, but I would feel embarrassed doing that. I would feel embarrassed and poor and stupid going out in public and saying, oh, I'm treated badly. Oh, this is intolerance and racism and this and that.
So
I would feel embarrassed about that.
You'd feel like you're whining, right?
Absolutely.
You'd feel like
how can people live with that?
You'd feel like you feel like a crybaby, right?
Yes.
And by the way, that's how I feel. If I'm going through anything, it's always in the back of my mind. There are people who have it so much worse than anything I'm going to go through. What business do I have really whining about these things? But guess what? That's true of various groups in the United States, like Muslims who would say they have it so bad, it's so horrible. They're going. guess what? You guys here in the United States have it so much better than almost anyone else down through history. I start thinking that you're just trained to complain, that you're just being trained to complain. But now, it's sad that that's the world we live in. But it does seem like ex-Muslims do need to just start jumping up with that, saying, "Hey, look, if that's what you're doing, if that's what we're doing, we're all going to sit back and complain. Guess what? We've got a much better case than the rest of you here."
You know, Islam actually teaches people to have a whiny attitude about other religious groups and about other people, about other non-Muslims, because you see the Quran, you have read the Quran, and in the Quran it is so often mentioned that Muslims are persecuted, that the non-believers are called oppressors and stuff like that. So Islam has this attitude in the Quran, in its fundamental scripture from the very beginning. And Muslims, when they learn about the Islam, about the Quran, about Islam, when they go through those studies, they learn this from the religion itself, this whiny attitude and this claim of being oppressed.
Yeah.
It is in the religion.
Yeah.
Sorry, this sounds very hate
speechy. By the way, we were talking on the live stream on your channel. I mentioned that back when I was in prison, sort of the first interactions I had with Muslims was I had one friend who was my workout partner, Anthony, and he was a convert to Islam, and we would go and work out and argue, Christianity and Islam, and that was, we were both former very violent people. And so, we're sitting here weightlifting and arguing, and we never hurt each other, but those arguments got pretty intense there. So just testosterone flying all over the place as we're arguing. But I pointed out that there was that incident where the sort of leader of the Christians there, Satterwhite, he's sort of the leader of the Christians, and he got surrounded by like 8 or 9 Muslims who intimidated him into taking down this little thing that he had posted on the Christian bulletin board, saying there are many false paths to God, but there's one true path to God, and that I didn't like the way they'd approached him there. So if they wanted to object, it would be completely reasonable for them to object. Hey, could you take that down? It would have been perfectly acceptable. But to surround him and intimidate him into doing that, I didn't like that, and so I posted something much bigger. I posted a serpent's head, and the serpent's head was saying, Jesus was just a prophet. Trust me. I need to post that. I've still got that I saved that. I've got that in a folder somewhere. But I posted that, and then instead of coming at me, the Muslims ran to the warden. They filed complaints with the warden about me. But that was my first. Wait a minute. When you guys can thug out on someone, you're going to thug out on them. But as soon as someone's not backing down from you thugging out on them, you're going to run and complain like you're being attacked here. Are you serious? That's how you do? You use force when you can, and when force isn't going to work, you go and complain that you're the victim. Are you serious? This was my first impression. But back then I was thinking, hey, it's just them. But from then on, I have seen wherever it's gone that when Islam can spread or get what it wants by force, it goes with force. When it can't, it's whining and complaining and pretending to be the victim. And you're right. This goes right back to the Muslim sources and the early Muslim community. So it's built into the religion to be this way, apparently.
I just want to add some very little thing. I'm not making this up. You can ask any former Muslim. Muslims won't tell you that, but you can ask any former Muslim. Anywhere in the Islamic world, especially in the Middle East or in Turkey or in other similar countries in North Africa, whatever, there is generally this attitude about your military power, your country's military power, and the Islamic world against the others. If we are talking about you doing something against the others, then people are so proud about that, and people say, we could do anything. We could do this and that to Israel, to America, and this and that. But once something is done to the Islamic world or to your country, the general attitude is, why don't they leave us alone? We are being oppressed all the time. That's the same attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can find that directly there.
Yeah, and it is amazing that 14 centuries ago the Quran said that Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for Muslims, and here we are. We see that pattern of conduct. That when Muhammad is a persecuted prophet in Mecca, it's whine and complain, whine and complain, whine and complain because I'm outnumbered. And when he becomes a more powerful force, then it's subjugate, subjugate, subjugate. And here we're 14 centuries later, and we see that pattern. And so,
the same thing.
Yeah. So I've noticed this, that you have individual Muslims who don't exhibit those characteristics, but it somehow is always exhibited by the larger population. Somehow these things rise to the surface in the population. Here's what that's actually along the lines of as far as combating the people who would try to silence us about Islam. How do we deal with that? But here, when do you think Islam will end? Now, it makes sense to ask you here because you're the prophet among us.
I made a recent video about that. I talked about it in our live chat too. I called it "Can Islam be Reformed?" And I think I said the same thing there. But what I think, some people don't agree with that, but what I think is that within the next 150 years, we should be seeing an extreme decline in the Muslim population, especially among people who live in the West and people who live closer to the West. I believe that in 150 to 200 years, Islam will die so quickly that no one will even notice and record that in history. It will die so quickly because it's going on right now already. Countries in Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Indonesia and Pakistan, more and more authorities in Saudi Arabia, they are complaining about and talking about the rising danger of apostasy, atheism, and interest in other religions. They are openly talking about this now, although they wanted to suppress this years ago and decades ago. They're openly talking about it and trying to find solutions about that. It's happening. The apostate population, the open apostate population, is growing so quickly, so rapidly, and people who don't identify themselves as atheists or anything, still identify themselves as Muslim but don't believe in it anymore, are also rising so rapidly. There was even a Gallup study, I believe, only a few years ago that was researching disbelief among people who identify themselves as Christian or Jewish or Muslim or whatever, and it was very high among Muslims. I believe in more than 20 countries or something like that. I don't know. I don't really have a very clear memory of this study, but it was something like among all the surveyed Muslims, more than 25 of them or so don't really believe in the concept of the religion of Islam anymore, and don't really identify with the religion and with the belief in Allah anymore, although they call themselves Muslims in public. So it's really happening, and that will get more and more out in public. People will more and more speak about it, and I firmly believe that within the next 200 years, in 150 years later, the newest generation will have a serious problem identifying themselves with Islamic traditions and Islamic religion. I believe it's dying so quickly, and I'm only helping that.
Yeah, and so so you believe Islam is kind of crumbling from within, and that it eventually kind of reaches a tipping point where there are enough people who are rejecting Islam privately that they can do so publicly, and we can kind of reach a kind of tipping point here in the West as well, where we talked about the problem with politicians and the media and Hollywood and the education system, where right now you kind of have to say the right things even if you don't believe in them, or you're going to have problems. But if we reach a tipping point where enough people are informed about Islam, if enough people are informed about Islam and know the truth and know what they're talking about, then guess what? Hollywood production companies, those are businesses. CNN, that's a business, right? Politicians depend on votes. Education system depends on donations from former students and so on. So if enough people get sick of being lied to and stand up and say, what you're saying is just false. We understand. If you don't want to criticize it, don't criticize it, but don't say stuff that's false. If enough people do that, everyone has to adapt, right? You have to adapt or you go out of business, right? If you're a politician, that's the easiest. If you don't have people voting for you because they're sick of it, then you're gone. They don't have to deal with you anymore. But even if you're CNN and people stop watching you, guess what? You make your money by by advertisers advertising and paying you money. If your ratings are low, you don't get the same money, and you go out of business, or you have to downsize, and you don't want to do that. So I don't expect everyone to criticize Islam, but stop interfering with people who do.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Stop
yes.
that. And so that's the tipping point I would like to see in the West. And I believe that's the only tipping point we need in the West. Just people
Yes.
who don't know anything about it and who are spreading nonsense about it. Keep your mouths closed. And
Yeah,
let other
shut
people,
up.
I understand not wanting to go after Islam, right? Like you're pointing out, you don't want to go after certain things, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
cause problems with, for Christians or anyone else. It's fine if you're like that with Islam. It's fine if you have Muslim friends and you don't want to hurt their feelings. It's fine if you're looking at the nice little old Muslim lady down the street and you don't want to tell her religion is violent. That's all fine. But don't say the opposite of what's true to try and block the way for people who are telling the truth. Right?
I believe we have a very big problem, though, that no one wants to talk about somehow. Even conservatives in America won't talk about it very much, because as much as I like America and as much as I like the West, we have this weird necessary connection with some very problematic countries in the world, like Saudi Arabia. That have so many fundings in the West, so many projects in the West, that work with major companies, with governments in the West. And what they are doing is spreading fundamentalist Islam and blocking, trying to block criticism of Islam wherever possible, even in the West. And we can't even work enough about that, because our governments are working so closely with that country, because they have to work together with that country, because Saudi Arabia has somehow this title among all those Muslim countries. I think that's a very big problem. I have really no idea how we are going to get out of that. But I think that's really contributing greatly to that problem that we have.
All right. Well, we are coming to the end here. And I just noticed we didn't even make a tiny dent in the questions over here. I put several of them up on the screen, and there are way more. So maybe at some point down the road, we should just get together for a Q&A for all the people here. We didn't get to their questions, and we can just do something one day where we just answer questions. But we only have a couple minutes left, because we're already going 2 hours here in the next couple minutes. But how can I put the link to your channel in the description box, so anyone who wants to follow the Apostate Prophet's videos, see his new material that's coming out, be sure to click that button and then go on his channel and click the little bell there so you get the notifications. But how else can people support what you're doing here?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is ex-Muslim Prophet there, because Apostate Prophet was taken.
Hey, if you want to, after we close out here, if you want to post a comment there, I'll pin the comment for anything you want to give here as far as links and so on.
Okay, sure. But you can support me on Patreon. I have an active Patreon account that is growing very rapidly, thanks to everyone who's supporting me. Yeah, you can.
Now, hang on here. There are Christians who are watching, and you're an atheist. Why should even Christians want to support you on Patreon? And I'm saying that because there are atheists who support me on Patreon. So why should even Christians be interested in supporting your work, given that you're an atheist?
Because they see the common problem, because they see that we have a problem here and that I'm talking about it. And we both are recognizing that problem, and we are honestly and fairly dealing with it without bringing up all these all religions nonsense and divide ourselves. I always spread unity. I want all of us, no matter from what religion you are, no matter if you're an atheist or a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu, to stick together and recognize the big problem, which is Islam. And I think many people have seen that by now, and that's why many Christians, even on my channel, are supporting me on Patreon, and I'm very thankful for that.
All right, so give us those. Did you have any more links? You mentioned Twitter and Patreon.
Well, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Patreon. I don't like Facebook, but I'm still there. That's pretty much all. I have recently started a German channel for all German speakers, because criticism of Islam is not very well represented in Germany, but I'm trying to do that now.
Oh yeah, and by the way, I noticed it's happened occasionally where I'll post a video and it'll get a certain number of views, and then someone will add German subtitles or French subtitles, and I'll see that the subtitled version that they posted on their own channel sometimes gets more views just a subtitled video than mine did in the original, and that shows that there is a real hunger over there, that there is a real need. Now the flip side is that there are lots of people who speak English, so lots of people can watch it, but already, but there is a hunger there if people are jumping all over stuff. So that's a genius idea, posting some stuff in German.
Yeah. I just want to respond to a point that I saw in the comment section very much, which is about Pamela Geller. I wrote for Pamela Geller at the beginnings of my YouTube stuff for temporarily. People are asking me why I don't do that anymore, or if I'm still doing that. I'm not doing it. That's because it's nothing about that. I just came to the conclusion that that's taking too much time of my work and is not really what I'm wanting to do. That's why I gave that up. So I'm not doing that anymore, just to clarify that.
All right.
But
so
aside from that, just go and watch my Pervert Prophet video while you're at it.
And so you can include the link for that as well in a comment, and I'll pin that so that it'll be right down at the bottom. All right, only about a minute left. I'll give this final minute to you for any closing thoughts or words for the viewers.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Thanks everyone for watching. It was a very nice conversation. Thank you so much, David, for having me. I think we talked about pretty much everything that I had on my mind. But one last thing that I want to say is if you think that Islam is not as big of a problem, or if you think that all religions are equally bad, I'm really telling you that you don't know what's going on. Just think about those two examples that I have given you. America, an atheist in America and an atheist in Pakistan. That's not because the West has become enlightened and westernized and this and that. It has maybe a bit to do with that, but that's not the major factor. The major factor is that Islam is a religion that is extremely intolerant and extremely dangerous. And I have lived in both cultures long enough, and I have seen that. So if you want to learn about Islam, come listen to us or open the sources and read for yourself, and then you can join us and start fighting this big problem that we have. If you're doing so already, thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you to the Apostate Prophet for joining us. Thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks to everyone for who's commenting in the comment section. Thanks to all the Muslims who show up and listen to what we have to say. Thanks to everyone who's been contributing on Super Chat. But you had one more word there?
No, you have to say something for me.
What's that?
Stay away from Islam.
Hey, everyone. Stay away from Islam.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yes. Perfect.
All right, we'll catch everyone next time.